Hi and welcome to another very exciting tutorial. If you have a look at these images here, this doesn't look very exciting, but it actually is. What we're seeing here is a simple screenshot of the Swift Tutorial Conference website, which is a PNG file, and an iOS simulator. But what our demo application does is actually recognizing the text of this screenshot and translating it into editable text right here in this text view. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use a great open source library called Tesseract. And Tesseract is considered one of the most accurate open source OCR engines currently available. It was developed by Hewlett-Packard in the 80s. Then it's now sponsored by Google since 2006, and it is often used as a command line tool on Linux, or you could also use it on macOS. But there fortunately also is an iOS framework or an iOS library that we can use, and this is actually written in Objective-C, but it doesn't matter. We can still use it in Swift. So how can we do that? First of all, this is the GitHub website or the repository of the Tesseract OCR iOS library, and I'm going to put a link to that in the video description below. And if you have opened this GitHub page, then you can move down here to the installation guide. And all that we need from this installation guide here is actually the name of the pod file that we are going to use, since we're going to use CocoaPods to install this library. So what we need to do here now is actually bring up Xcode and create a new project. We're going to create a new single view application for that. I'm going to call that text recognition, hit next, and create that on the desktop. And that's actually all we need to do here. And now we simply close that project. And now that we've created that project, we can create a pod file for that project. And I'm going to bring up the terminal for that purpose, going on to my directory text recognition on the desktop, and then simply writing pod in it, which creates a pod file for us. So if I'm bringing up the text recognition project folder here and I'm opening the pod file here with Xcode, I can simply paste the pod file right here, or the name of our pod, and then I hit save. Now we can directly close that pod file, and then we simply write into the terminal pod install. And then this is going to maybe take a few seconds until it downloaded all of the Tesseract data. But as soon as it did, we have a new file here, which is called text recognition Xcode workspace, and we're going to open up this one. And now we're going to try to build it. And let's see what happens. So build failed, and we're going to have a look at the problem here. And as you can see, there is a problem with bitcode, or that we have enabled bitcode in our project. Bitcode is used by Apple to directly make modifications to your already published iOS app. So this means that Apple can make some changes. This has something to do with the on-demand resources, for example. But this is all completely optional. So what you can do is switching bitcode off for this project to work. And to do that, I'm going to bring up the project here. And what we need to do is go into the build settings and make sure to select not basic, but all options here. And then we're simply looking for bitcode. And we make sure to disable that right here. And then also for the project itself, we disable bitcode. Let's choose a simulator here to run our application. And then we build that again. And this error should be gone. So let's see, what else do we have here? Update project settings. This is something we can do as well. So let's simply update them, build this again, and we're good to go. So what we can do now is actually create our very simple user interface for that project by bringing up the main storyboard. I'm adding a text view right here. So let's put it somewhere here. like this, pinning it to the left, top, and right, adjusting it so that it resizes when our window resizes or our phone gets bigger or when we turn our phone around. And then we'll bring up the assistant editor and create an outlet for our text view, which I'm simply going to call text view. And with that, we've prepared our user interface, and now we're ready to use Tesseract. And as you can see, I already did that, but let's do it one more time. We can simply use an import statement to import the Tesseract OCR library or framework to our project, although it is not written in Swift. Since we used CocoaPods, it did everything we needed for that, so that we can directly use Tesseract OCR in our project. And now, how complex or how complicated is it to perform text recognition? Well, it's as simple as creating an object. And we are simply going to create a Tesseract constant here, Tesseract, and initialize it with G8 Tesseract. And as you can see, it asks us for a language here, or string that we have to provide. And I'm entering ENG for English right here. You could also enter something like ENG plus ITA for English and Italian, for example, but we're only going to use English. But if you create a Tesseract object, and if we were to use it right now, let me just put that right here, Tesseract and recognize or something like that, you see that Tesseract is actually optional, because it could happen that we cannot create a G8 Tesseract object if our language file that we need to support is not available. So how do you get that? Well, there is also a GitHub page for that, and you can reach that by having a look at the using Tesseract OCR I think it's usage example here on the GitHub page I already showed you. Once your setup sees some usage examples, and then you can find this website here, the code.google.com, and so on and so on. And this redirects you here to this GitHub page, where you will find all the language files that you can use for Tesseract. And there is Arabic, there is German, there is English, there is Italian, there are a lot of languages, and I've just downloaded the English version of that file. So let's just have a look at that. I've put that into a test data folder, and there is the English trained data file, which is about 22 megabytes in size, and I'm going to add that to our Xcode project right now. Let's bring up that Xcode project and put that into our project folder. And I make sure to select copy items if needed, and I also create a folder reference instead of groups so that Tesseract can actually find this test data, or what's it called? Yes, test data folder in our project structure or in our bundle. And then I also make sure that add to targets is selected. I hit finish, and there is our test data file. So since this can fail, and we could get an optional, or we get an optional object here, I put that into an if-let statement. And then we can continue using, for example, the Tesseract delegate. I'm assigning self here. And that means that we also have to adopt the G8 Tesseract delegate. And this is pretty useful if you want to show your users, for example, the progress of the image recognition. So there is a function called progress image recognition. And what you can do here is we are simply going to use a print statement to display the recognition progress using the Tesseract object that we get here in this delegate function, and accessing its progress property, and maybe adding a % right here. And this means you can use that to show your users how long it's going to take until recognition is done, or how far the recognition already progressed. And now all we need is an image to process. So you could use an image from the photo library. You could let your users directly take an image. We are simply going to use a demo image for that. I'm going to add that, just a second, add that to my assets folder. So let's add that right here. Make sure that this is the 2x version here since we're using the iPhone 7. And then we can go back to our view controller. And all you need to do is use the Tesseract object and specify a UI image. So I'm using UI image, named, it's called demo text. And what's cool is now that the Tesseract library also gives you some image modification functions like G8 _ black and white, which transforms the image in a way, or modifies the image in a way which improves the recognition quality. So we're going to do that right here. And then what we need to do to recognize the text on that image is pretty complicated. We have to call the function recognize. So that's it. That's so cool. And now that we have recognized the text, we can use textView.text and simply assign Tesseract.recognized text, and we're done. Wow. This is pretty amazing. I really love it because you can do so much with this text recognition technology, and everyone has access to it. So this is pretty cool, and we're now going to have a look at what happens. And as you can see, we have recognized text right here, and it's pretty accurate. And as you can see, we also have the recognition progress right here, reaching from 30 to 100% or 93%, and then it actually did not call the delegate function any longer. But here is our simulator, and here is the original text. And there are some problems with line breaks, and there are also some problems here with the absolutely free at the end. But besides from that, I think the text recognition quality is really great. So that was our quick tip tutorial for this week. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you'd like to see more of those open source frameworks, then let me know it in the comments below. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.